Today's guest has financed over 10 billion in commercial real estate. But what's more interesting is what she chose to do after she mastered that world. This is a conversation about reinvention, ownership, and learning how to play a much bigger game. Women don't talk about money the way we should. Not honestly, not openly, and not with each other. But that's changing. I'm Syama Bunten, founder of Wealth Catalyst. And Getting Rich Together is where the conversation lives. Every week, a different woman, a different path, and a conversation that will change how you think about your own financial power. This community is growing and you belong in it. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review so more women can find their way here. Now, let's get rich together. I am here today with the incredible and brilliant Katie Dunn. Katie, not only are you this prolific investor entrepreneur who's helped founders raise over $30 million, you come from this incredible background of having done banking, financial services, and ultimately helping to finance over $10 billion in commercial real estate, 10 Bs. B is such a big word. I love that. It really speaks to what a force you are in this industry. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about not just all the things that you are up to, but your life story and all the things that have made you such a prolific woman today who's really in and around this ecosystem of building and launching successful businesses and supporting incredible founders. Katie, thank you so much for being here today on Getting Rich Together.
Thank you so much for having me, Syama. I am really excited and honored to be able to chat with you in this forum. We've chatted many times, but on your pod is quite an honor. So thank you.
It's such a pleasure for me. It's like one of my favorite things is to sit and hold space and listen to incredible women and their stories, because I do believe that in sharing these stories, we ultimately realize that we're not ahead, we're not behind. We are all tracking to this very unique, beautiful life that we get to have unfold. So with that, Katie, I'd love to start with some of the early days of your beautiful and magical life. Bring me back to a young girl somewhere between the ages of 10 and 12 years old. Where were you in this world and what was going on around you?
So I was in Minnesota. I grew up outside of Minneapolis, and let's see, 10 to 12 is kind of interesting because I was 12 when I started working. So 10, I was probably going to camp. 10 to 12, I was going to camp, loved it. Horseback riding, tennis, outdoors, playing with friends. It was a very good place to grow up. Lots of skiing, all the winter sports, all that stuff. So it was fun. But I did start working at my dad's office when I was about 12. Yeah.
And what were you doing at 12 years old? What were you tasked with?
I was tasked, my sister and I, who was 11, were tasked with stuffing envelopes. And so my dad worked for a commercial real estate firm. He was very entrepreneurial as well. And this firm, back in those days, there's no email, there's no email, there's no car phones, cell phones, none of that. So they were big in office leasing and industrial space leasing. So they would print out these flyers. They'd have these flyers printed out. And then my sister and I would go stuff the envelopes. And then we'd have to run them through the mail machine and stuff like that.
Oh my God, I love that. So you were at 12 years old already into the world of real estate. It was already around you. Oh my God. So what did you know of that world when you were stuffing envelopes? Were there any synapses that were being connected and firing at that time? Or was it oh man, I gotta stuff envelopes and this sucks?
It felt honestly, it felt cool. Cause when you're a kid and you want to play office and you don't my friends and I used to play office. We were really at the office, it was, we thought it was cool. And we got to play on their one computer and things like that. It was fun for us. And my dad was he took us, my mom worked when I was young. So she worked at a clothing store. And so on the weekends, it was my sister and I were with my dad. And he would take us to go, he owned an apartment building. And so we would go to the apartment building and we would collect the quarters from the laundry machines. And then we'd have to go up to the landlady's apartment, who was this wonderful lady that we would separate. She would put red nail polish on her quarters. That was part of the deal of being the landlady, that she got free laundry. So we'd separate out her red quarters from the bags of quarters, and then we'd take them to the bank. So it was like, that was like, we felt like we were doing fun stuff. You know, we thought it was cool. My dad was like literally doing chores, but my sister and I loved it. And we'd drive around and look at the buildings that he was working on, or, you know, look at things that were under construction, stuff like that. So we were always really in it with him.
I love that so much. It's also, I feel like these days you hear people talk about, buying non-sexy businesses like laundromats and things like that. But not everyone, I don't think, actually knows like what entails like running the laundromat or separating the quarters and like talk about like a fantastic insider's point of view at a very young age of like what everyone now on Instagram is like hyping about. And you're like, actually, like, let me tell you.
It's no joke. I mean, it's totally no joke. I don't know that laundromats actually take quarters anymore, but it's you have to do cards now, right? Like you put money on cards or something. But yeah, we did like a lot of those things that nowadays are, with technology and all that, are not even remotely applicable. But it was a way to learn. Like, it's funny because I loved the real estate stuff and I loved learning about, understanding why a building was put in the place it was and why it was angled the way it was so that it got enough like visual appeal from the street. And like my sister was like, she did not care about it. She just did not, she went marketing. She worked in movies. She did she did like totally different stuff. So it was pretty interesting that the impression it had on me versus her.
Oh, that's just how cool. And so in high school at that time, were you like, did you already have an idea of sort of where you wanted to go in high school, or was it sort of an exploratory phase? Like, what did you know of yourself at a young age?
I loved math. I loved science. I did a lot of that in high school. I even did my senior year of high school, because I was in the advanced science track. I got to have my own research project at the University of Minnesota. So a couple days a week, I would leave school, go to the University of Minnesota, go to my lab and do my work, and then go back to school, which was wild. And it was actually really good. And I'm really glad I did it then, because I had thought about being a doctor or being, doing science as a career. And I hated it so much, what I was doing. So I'm so glad, took me, I loved real estate. And I always said I wanted to be the financial side of real estate. I had no idea what that really meant or like what kind of jobs that was. But that's where that opportunity gave me that direction.
Wow.
But yeah,
That is so amazing. I mean, to be able to like have clarity, right? Or have some idea of a direction, I think is so powerful. And so when you had that clarity, like, was your dad like, yeah, she's like, or like, how did he sort of think about, what was the family sort of thoughts here on like the directions that you were interested in?
I don't think my dad wanted me to go into real estate. I think, especially at that time, it was, so male dominated. I mean, it still is very, very male dominated. And he was a huge proponent of women even back then. And I saw it myself, like even women that today he's long retired, but women today will write him Christmas cards, holiday cards. They'll write him emails. There's a woman that went on to be the president and owner of the company that he worked for, like much later after he left. And I used to babysit her kids. And so she and I are still friendly. And she says all the time, I credit your dad for getting me involved in this organization and giving me this opportunity and those kinds of things. So he was definitely, I'm so lucky in who the person is that raised me and taught me those things. But I think he also wanted to protect me, and he wanted me to do, to be successful. But I really liked it. I mean, I really did like it for a really long time. And it was very male dominated, but I was okay with that. I have a lot of guy friends, and, I went to Notre Dame for college. I might be getting ahead of things, but it was, I hung around with, that was male dominated too. At the time, it was not 50-50. So it was just I could hang, I could talk about football. I could talk about guy things in order to get ahead in business. I felt like I felt like I needed to do that kind of stuff.
Did you start playing golf?
No, I haven't. Have you? Have you started playing golf?
Pardon?
Have you started playing golf?
No, but I'm just wondering. You're like, I'm talking sports. I'm like, okay.
That was one thing. I do actually, I will play with my parents every, like, once or twice a year. I'll play with them and use my mom's clubs, and it's fine. It's just not, I feel like it's a lot of time. I'm not ready for all that, to put all my time into that.
That's so funny. Okay. So here we find ourselves in university. Are you like heads down books, or is Katie Dunn, is Katie kind of likes to party on the weekends, or are you working on the weekends? Like what was college life like for you, and how are you sort of approaching your future, and what is it you knew of yourself at that time?
I would say that I was not as good of a student as I was in high school. College was harder and that's because I definitely partied on the weekends. Like one of the guys that worked at my dad's office gave me really good advice. He said, going to college, he was like, I'm going to tell you, this is the secret. Study during the day. When all your other friends are screwing around or doing other things, study between your classes. Go to the library, find a quiet place, find your spot, and that will free you up so you're not having to cram the night before a test, or you're not able to not go out to that party on Saturday night or whatever it is. So I took that to heart, and I was pretty good about that. But I felt like, college was a blast. I say it all the time. Like, I was so lucky. My parents sent me away to hang out with my friends for 4 years. It was great. So I took advantage of that. I definitely, I did a lot of, I volunteered, I studied, I was in student government. I kind of did all the things that I wanted to do. It was fun.
Oh, I love that so much. It's funny, like these days when I talk to young people, I'm always like, so like how are you? Especially like the young, like post grad, they're just right out of college and they're all busy networking and doing all, and like they're so focused. And I go, well, do you go to dance parties? And like, do you like hang out with people? Because, for me, like all of my career breaks and things really all came from like social things, and just like liking people and being social. And it's such an interesting and different experience now, I feel like, for so many young people who are so very, very focused on their education and their studies. And then all of a sudden they graduate and they realize that an entire industry has changed in 4 years. And like, all of this studying is good, but it's also not everything, right?
It's so funny that you say that. I literally had a call today with one of my buddies from college, his daughter, she's a junior in college right now, and she's trying to get an internship. And she's a Division I lacrosse player. So super talented team sport person, really like just so charming and fun to be around and smiley and good attitude. And she's great. And she has always wanted to be a lawyer. So she's a political science major, and then she's a business minor, but she wants to try finance. And she's apologizing. She's like, I just don't know. I don't think I can get the investment banking job, or I don't think I can, I'm not that, I like the finance classes I've taken. I think that I've done well in them, but I'm not that kid that is going to get hired. And I'm like, okay, stop. You're going to get hired in whatever makes sense for you. Stop apologizing for what you know or you don't know. when somebody asks you, tell them, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, so I've pursued this, but I've really enjoyed and flourished in my finance classes. So I want to do this too. And I want to give this a go and get some real experience before I go to law school or whatever. And I felt, it's so competitive these days. It's crazy. So and I'm like, I'll hook you up with some people that you can talk to, and maybe they'll give you an internship, no promises, but it's just so competitive. And she's so, she's, but you got to go in with the attitude, like, I can do this. I know if I just get a chance, I can do it. And that's where she's at.
I mean, everyone, I mean, that is like, I feel like we're all at that stage. I'm like, okay, I can do it, Syama. I just, it's like we
Yeah.
really need the I can do it attitude, I think, now more so than ever, no matter how old you are or what it is that you're up against. So when you were graduating university, did you find it challenging then to sort of nail your first jobs, or was it like, oh yeah, like, I know what I want, I'm going after it, this is the salary I want? Like, you strike me as someone who probably knew what she wanted and was like, plotting a course here. But how much of that was a strategic plan, and how did you start to navigate these first jobs outside of university?
So I did the interviews, some of the interviews at school, but there wasn't a lot of real estate that came through. It just wasn't really a thing. So I was really, again, lucky that one of my parents' friends was in real estate in Chicago, and I wanted to live in Chicago after college. And so he set me up right before, it was right before 4th of July weekend. I drove to Chicago from Minneapolis, and he set me up. I went to his office first thing in the morning with a map. And he gave me a map, and he had set up like 5 or 6 interviews with me. And he had plotted them all out through the suburbs and ending up in downtown Chicago. And so I went around and met with all these people, and they were all informational interviews. And one of the last ones, I think it was the last one, it was with a guy who told me immediately upon meeting me, going into his office, I don't have any jobs for you. I'm just doing this because of a favor to John. I was like, that's okay. Thank you. And so we just chatted. He was so direct but funny and clever but nice. He was great. So a week after I left, I went home. I actually went on vacation with a bunch of girlfriends, and then wrote all my thank you notes to everybody and did the whole thing. I had a couple other second interviews, but this guy called me back and said, I actually might have a job for you. You really remind me of this other person that's working with us. And I like that type of person, somebody that grew up in real estate, that really passionately wants to be in real estate. It's not just doing this just for a job, ticked all these boxes for him. And he created a position for me. So it was amazing. He's still he's long retired too, but he was a wonderful man. But I credit him for giving me my real start, because it was a great opportunity. I ended up transferring to New York with that company, and it was great.
Yeah. Oh my God. And so at that time, obviously this person's creating a role for you. So like, who's to know what the competitive salary is? I mean, obviously getting a job on its own is like a big deal. Being able to move to New York with the company is a big deal. Like, these are all great milestones. At what point were you like, oh, I'm really good at this, and like, I want to continue? I feel like there's always like, because you're not just working in real estate at this point. Now you're also working in this corporate culture, which is really different than sort of working with dad, right? And like having a different family dynamic. When did you sort of start to realize that, like, okay, this was a game that you were excited about, that you wanted to sort of continue pursuing? And then how did you start to parlay your desires into these next roles that you would take on?
So the first role I had was as an analyst for mortgage bankers. So these people are the ones that have the property owner relationship and the banking relationship, and they're putting the two together. And I, like a broker. And we're doing big deals, mostly in and around Chicago. I financed so many millions of dollars of Walgreens deals. I can't even tell you, because that was when one of our big clients would build a bunch of Walgreens. But I quickly realized I didn't want to be a broker. And there would be all these bankers that would come in, and they were the ones with the money. And I saw that and what they were doing. And I realized I need to have the money. I think as a woman, I'm going to have a better chance of success if I have the money. So the company that I worked for had bought this little lending arm, or created this little lending arm. And it was a securitization. I don't want to get too technical, but it was the birth of securitization, where you'd package up a bunch of loans and then have them rated and peel them off and sell them as bonds. So it was early days of that. And I really saw that as an opportunity to get in. And that's what I went for. And that was where I spent the majority of my real estate career, in those kind of deals, which were a lot of fun. I did everything from underwriting to originating, meaning like I was the one that would go out and work with the brokers or the building owners and get their deals. I asset managed loans. I ran portfolios. I did all kinds of different things. So it was fun.
Real quick, I want to tell you about something I built for you. May 14th, New York City, the Wealth Catalyst Summit. One day, 140 women who are serious about what they do with their money. Executives, founders, investors in the same room, having the kinds of conversations that just don't happen anywhere else. Private markets, real estate, how to get on boards, how to buy a business, how to make your capital actually reflect what you believe. If you've been listening to the show, you already know that this is your room. Seats are limited, and we are coming up on this event May 14th. So register today at wealthcatalyst.com. Link is in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation.
It sounds like it's one of those things where the more you peel back, the more there is to learn. And like there's like so many, it's like talk about like, the very niche specialization in one specific thing. And then there's like this other very important but tangential specific thing, and sort of this like big can of worms. At what point in your career in these early days did things start to materially change for you? Was it through, asking for, I don't know, better commissions? I don't know if you operated that way, or if it was asking for bonuses or salary negotiations. When did you start to realize the power of your intelligence and what you were able to sort of bring to the table?
Yeah. We were bonused. We were like the kind of investment banking bonused. That's how that structure worked. So it was, the thing that was interesting is that while that business, commercial mortgage-backed securities, or CMBS is what we refer to it as, really small world, like super small world. But the way that you made money was you went to a different shop. And so where I felt like I would get poached, basically. People would, say, hey, I'm going to the shop. Do you want to come with me? Or, people I'd worked with in the past would say, hey, we're hiring, come work here. So that was when I realized, I've got a little bit of leverage. I can make more money. I can, do more things if I jump.
Awesome. And as you started to realize some of these material changes, like what sort of like investor did you find yourself to be? Obviously your father is very entrepreneurial. Did you take a 180 from that, and were you more risk averse with sort of what you were doing with your capital? Did you also start investing in real estate or other assets? When did you start to, and how did you start to think about some of these early on investing strategies for yourself?
So the first way I dabbled was in stocks, and my dad, he, as you might imagine, he was a huge proponent of financial literacy for both me and my sister. This is how I remember him taking us to open up our first bank accounts. And so he would buy both of us stocks for Christmas. Like once I think we were probably out of college, maybe a year or two out of college. And then he would say, and he set us up with a person at Merrill Lynch, and we had our own person to talk to. And it was that money that I also invested in with him that I bought my first apartment. And then I made a bunch of money from selling that and buying another apartment. And so it was really mostly about stocks and individual, like residential real estate at the beginning. I have invested, I had some opportunities to invest in commercial real estate, and both of them went south in 2008. So which was tough. But it's investments that I knew, like I knew the risks, and I didn't risk more than I could afford to lose, just like any investment, right? And so yeah, so real estate, commercial real estate hasn't been good to me. My residential real estate has been great. I've done well in buying and selling apartments and in my life. But yeah, and then I got into angel investing. I started with a movie. Did you know, have we ever talked entertainment stuff? I don't think you and I have really.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, a friend of mine he's not really, he's doing other things now, but he was an actor and had a comedy group in LA. And he did a bunch of movies with that group. And then he was doing his first one that was on his own. So he wrote and was directing it. And I'd always wanted to learn about that. I just thought it was so interesting and fun. And so I put a little syndicate together, and we were the first check in. And the movie it premiered at Tribeca, which was super fun.
Wow.
But we made no money. So yeah, and it's great. I'm super proud of it. It's a great cast and all the things. But yeah.
How old were you when you did that investment into the movie?
Oh, that was, let's see, I was probably 40. Yeah, I think I was 40.
Yeah,
when
that's so awesome to be able to these sorts of. Anyway, let's keep double clicking through things, but like this sort of like, I feel like timing and sizing and stability, right? And sort of where you are when you start to make these different investments. So like when you made your first, let's say like residential real estate investment, what was, when did you do that? How did you sort of decide what the right purchase was going to be for you? And was it something where you were really strategic about, I'm going to buy this and hold this for a certain period of time? Obviously, real estate's your world. But at what point did you start to apply these ideas into your own portfolio?
Yeah, so my first apartment, I think like 28 when I bought it in New York. And it was a financial decision, and in New York, you need 20% down. Normally it was a co-op. So had a lot of rules and all of that. But I was lucky because I got chunks of money in my bonuses, right? So I had that cash that I could put to work there. And at the time where interest rates were, the monthly payment was a fraction of what I would have paid in rent. So it was great. So I was able to.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I put a little bit of money, a couple $1,000s into that place, and I almost doubled it 5 years later. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of market. It was good location. Yeah. It was clean and nice and all the things. And then, I've gotten lucky with buying stuff in good interest rate environments. That's just luck. You can't always do that. But I'm a big believer in, real estate can be a very big driver of wealth and creator of wealth. So if you can find something in a down market, or you have a couple bucks to invest and put some money into it to fix it up and flip it, I mean, you can make a lot of money.
That's really exciting. I feel like there are so many great stories that I've heard that really have an anchor around real estate, as far as like, the opportunities for leverage and, sort of like a very great long-term strategy. Obviously today you're not working day to day in the real estate spaces, and you find yourself now occupied with lots of different kinds of businesses and lots of different ways of sort of seeing growth and working in these like also risky and exciting environments. At what point and when did you start to cultivate, outside of what you would know? So let's say it's like, equities, because thanks, Dad, for supporting you, and then starting to build within this area that you have your career. So getting into real estate. When did you start to, and how did you start thinking about investing in different asset classes beyond these two things that were so familiar?
I was always interested in angel investing and what that meant. I don't even think I knew the term that it was an angel investor when I would think about this, but my cousin is a very successful entrepreneur. And when she sold her first company, she was then investing in some companies, and she's been a mentor, and I've worked with her over, certain times of my life. And so watching her do that was a big inspiration. Also, when Uber went public and the news was like, the people that invested $5,000 made 5 million. I was like, how do I do that? Like, how does that opportunity happen?
Totally.
Obviously knowing, that was crazy. And that was a, total anomaly or whatever, but just trying to understand, like in real estate, when you're looking at deals, and I looked at, I financed so many office buildings, industrial portfolios, retail centers, and you have to look at all the tenants in the building to make sure they're financially stable enough to pay the rent. So you always underwrite the biggest tenants, and you look at their financial statements if they're a publicly traded company, or sometimes the owner will get their financial statements. So I was constantly looking at those things, and then I would have to go visit the properties. So I would see their operations. I mean, I've seen some of the coolest things, like a mile-long Amazon warehouse in Arizona. I got the behind-the-scenes tour that no real people actually get to go do, but I had to see it for this loan. Things like that, or just like there's caves in Kansas City that are all operate as industrial buildings, and there's a huge printing operations there that prints like the majority of cereal boxes, like crazy stuff, like
so
wild
cool.
stuff. Yeah. So cool. And that's next to like a passport, a huge place where they keep all the passport records and stuff. Crazy, the U.S. State Department, crazy stuff. So all of that's what I loved learning about all those businesses. I loved seeing how they operated, and all of those things opened up my eyes. Like, there's so much other opportunity out there. There's so many other problems being solved through these businesses that that was super intriguing to me. And I think that's what led me into angel investing, is that I felt like, okay, I know I can learn about these businesses because I've learned about so many businesses in the past. And I know a little bit about a lot of different things from looking at all these types of businesses over the years. So I went deep in a couple areas, like beverage being one of them, spirits and non-alc beverages, and then kind of B2B SaaS, I would say, are sort of my wheelhouses now.
How did you start to, obviously to go from, and it sounds like maybe some of these deal flows were more available to you vis-a-vis family or sort of other opportunities, but how did you start to go from, I saw this thing and I see it all the time on Instagram. It's like, this company made this amount if you invested at this time, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, so much FOMO. How did you go from that to then being able to not only write your first check, but also to have the confidence to do that, right? So like, oh my God, I'm going to write this check and I have no idea what's going to happen. But further to that, like to have a sense of financial stability, to feel like this was something, because I do think that there's something to be said about the right confluence of things, right? It's like the access, the confidence to do it, and then also this financial stability to say, I can take these sorts of levels of risk. How did you sort of piece together, and when did you start maybe looking into it versus when did you start investing into it?
Yeah, I wrote the first check because of opportunity. And that was one of the I think you hit the nail on the head with how those all those things need to come together. It is about access to deals and who is in your network that is doing something worth investing in. And it was one of my buddies from work came into my office and said, I know you've done outside investments at the bank we worked for. You had to get permission, and it's from the bank, so it wasn't a conflict. And so I said, I'll tell you I did it, but you have to tell me what you're investing in. And he said, my brother-in-law is starting a gin company. And I said, okay, I want in. It just sounded fun and interesting. And they're in Ireland, and it's my largest investment by far. I'm on the board. The founder and I are super close. I love everything that now we have a rum brand as well. And it's been fantastic. So that's been really, really fun. I mean, there's ups and downs to everything. I've learned so much about the 3-tier system in the US. It's so screwed up. There's so many problems to be solved there. But anyway, it's been really interesting. So going deep with that was a lot of fun. And then once I did that one, so I wrote that check, and then I was like, okay, I got to get myself a little more educated. I took the Yale Women on Boards class, which was phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. That was a really good, not only network, but kind of level set in governance and what that and how, how do these things operate? Like it was more focused around corporate boards, but it was really relevant. And you have to think about all those things at the beginning, right? You have to think about the company structure. How are you setting it up? Who's doing what? How are you going to make sure that all this compliance and all these things are in place and all that? So it was great. And then COVID hit, and I was home working for the bank, dealing with all the fallout in real estate because nobody was going to work, nobody was going to the store, and nobody could go to the gym, right? Nobody was doing anything, so people weren't paying their rent. It was crazy. But I also had more time because I wasn't traveling. I wasn't going out with friends. I just had more time. So I took an angel investing class, which was phenomenal. That was all over Zoom, and again, built another great network there. And so that was really helpful. And just like, I know the finance side, I could build a model in my sleep, but just understanding the terms, how do people look at things? What are the metrics that they're measuring versus what you look at in a real estate deal? They're totally different things, all that. So that was really great. And so opportunities came from that, and opportunities came from other networks. And then you put angel investor in your LinkedIn profile and watch out. Brutal. The DMs are brutal.
I mean, I think, one of the things that I love about how you show up in the world is that you are so authentic and real and honest and kind. And so that means that, I like to call this like, firm kindness, right? Where it's like, let me share with you my boundaries and tell you how to engage with me. And if you mess that up, well, that's on you. Like I can't help you with that, which I think is so incredible. So how have you then in these last few years, you are so well known in the spaces of angel investing, but also in mentorship and really providing so much guidance to these founders that I almost feel like there's some sort of, badge that these founders should have that's like, I've been Katie Dunn approved, where it's like, where everyone knows that like, okay, like these guys are ready. I always feel like for these early angel investors and those who have started investing and are trying to figure out how to do diligence, the stamp of approval, I think, is actually so important because I think that there are so many women who are writing checks for the very first time who are still learning, right? And so having something that feels more vetted, and I think is so powerful. But can you share a little bit about this pivot, right? And this sort of direction and what it looks like today for you? Is it like, okay, we still have these real estate, like, owning these buildings, and this is still happening, and I'm doing checks, and I get to spend my time with these founders. How are you allocating your time and your energy and your resources right now such that you're able to show up in this like very prolific way for so many founders right now?
Yeah. So every day, every day looks different. That's for sure. It's a lot of Zooming, which is fine. I'm actually really grateful for it because I get to live where I want to live and still be present for people and available for people. So right now I am leaning heavily into AI. I have built digital twins of myself. One I call the investor, one I call the advisor. And those I've dumped like all the frameworks, everything I've written, everything I've built over the past couple of years into them so that they're basically me, and they even have my voice. So I can give people, like, a big part of my ethos is like I was turning so many founders away because I don't work directly with people that are outside of the US, because if I'm going to make introductions, it doesn't make sense if they're not, a lot of investors want US based companies for tax reasons and all those things. So it just gets harder to do that. So I don't take those. I don't always take, people have limited budgets. They can't always afford me. I'm expensive. There's timing things, it's just not going to work out. I'm full on clients right now. Whatever it is, these digital twins are always on, always available to answer questions. They're priced monthly subscription really reasonably. And the best is like seeing them win. I have one woman who's won more than $45,000 in grants using my digital twins as helping her build out her applications. Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. So, things like that, it's like, okay, great. It's working. I can put my brain into something else and help. So there's those. I do a lot of writing. I create a lot of frameworks and even just LinkedIn posts, things like that. And then, I Zoom a lot with founders and just, everything from one-on-one, offering a half an hour of advice based on what they can tell me in that half hour. I do those calls through Hubble. And then to working with founders on a retainer basis and like helping them all through their fundraising strategy. But I've built some tools that help me digest what they need to say in their pitch script and then put out their pitch, the content for their deck that I used to take months and months to do. It would be this back and forth and a lot of editing. Now I have a good pitch deck built, or the content for it built in 3 hours, which is like the script and the deck, and then you just populate it in Canva or whatever. But it's pretty great. And then, then I'll make intros for founders to whatever they might need, if it's fractional CFOs or marketing people or investors. But everybody knows that when they get an intro from me, that this is really important. This goes to my, what you're saying about me being direct and all that, and reputation and the stamp of Katie Dunn. That's like everything to me. That's the only thing, like that's my most valuable asset, right? Is my reputation and my network. So I only make intros for people that I really, really believe in and that know that they're going to be like, you're never going to have somebody waste your time. If I say, Syama, will you get on the phone with this person? I think you're going to really enjoy them. It's not going to be a waste of your time. You're going to get some value out of it. It's not just you giving. I always want it to be a value exchange rather than a you have to help this person kind of thing. So it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah, and so are you currently in this work, do you still like actively manage any are you fully out of like
I'm
dealing?
fully out of banking and real estate. Yeah. So I left that about 3 years ago. I basically got so, I just got frustrated with the bank that I was working at, what I was doing. It was like a very big dichotomy of I'm spending some time in this interesting world of startups, which was really calling me, and like the positivity and the growth and the opportunity. And real estate was all bad, all risk management. And there's a balance there, right? That risk management is obviously super important, but it was a very, I was over the environment that I was in. I wasn't going to get promoted. They weren't going to move me up. I was, I like to say, banging my head against the cement ceiling because it was not glass, it was cement. And I didn't, so
Wow.
I went to them and said, hey, give me a package. I'll tell you exactly who can do each part of my job and you won't miss a beat. And they finally did.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's when I started working with founders full time. Yeah.
Woo, Katie. That is like, I mean, you are such a good communicator. Like that is, talk about leaving with like elegance, like what an elegant way to be like, okay, here's the setup, like best of luck, see you never, and like,
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Oh man, I love that. And so as you're sort of looking now at this whole new chapter and your quick sort of ability to be on the ground and be this woman who's got a perspective, who is really, talk about being in the trenches. Like this is not easy work that you're up against and what you're doing here. When you think about your life, let's say from a young age of 110, which, I do believe we're going to be alive so much longer than we think we will, certainly based on the rate of technology. Your AI twins will be around for infinity. So
Yeah.
there's that. But when you start to think about legacy and this body of work and, your intelligence and your aptitude and all that you're building, and this really what feels to me like stepping into this part that's like very heart and mind aligned, you really seem like a woman on a mission here. What is the sort of body of work or legacy that you're hoping to leave on this planet?
Well, I want to be very clear that I am doing all of this to make a ton of money too. And I'm not apologizing for that. Like this is like this, I want to make money and have these founders that I've invested in make a ton of money too. And so my whole thing is the more women founders I can support and get them rich, they can help the next and the next and the next. And we won't have this huge funding gap and exit gap and all these things when it comes to women-owned businesses. So that's a big part of it. And the other part is, I think I feel good when somebody's like, yeah, you made that intro and it changed everything for me. Or I've got a resource that I can provide that has made a difference. That makes me feel good. It's but I do want to get rich too. And like, that's a big, or invest my money wisely and be able to celebrate that and live that and, pass that on to other people. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this is why we're on the Getting Rich Together podcast.
Yeah.
This is what we're up for. My last two final questions for you, Katie. The first is obviously we've spoken a lot about investing, about these different asset classes, but certainly money is really fun. And there are a lot of great things we can do with our money. What is what has been your most favorite recent thing, item, experience that you have spent your money on lately?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know something lately, but I'll tell you, can I do what I did for my 50th birthday?
Yes.
So I went to Miraval in Tucson, Arizona. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I have not been. I would like to go there. That is on my list.
You would love it so much. I know you would love it so much. So I went there for almost a week and it was by myself and it was totally like, I wouldn't say it's not indulgent because it's not, the food is really healthy and you don't really drink and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like indulgent in that way, but it's the way I indulged. I didn't have to, the only decisions I had to make is what I wanted to do that day. And I could go to any class they offered. I could go get a massage. I could go to a workout class. I could, like just doing whatever I wanted to do was.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I love that. And then my final question is, everyone who listens to the show, we're so keen on rallying around the women who are on the show. And so when it comes to what you are calling in right now, what we can do for you, Katie, what can we do for you? What do you need right now?
I would say I want more founders or more people testing the digital twins. They've been live for just over 3 months, and I should probably have looked at the stat, but well over 200 people try them, and they're really making a difference. Like, I know I'm early in this, and you and I have talked about this a little bit offline, but the digital twin thing, I think I think it's going to be a thing, and I know I'm early on it, and I want more people to try them and to
Okay,
just give
cool.
them a shot. Yeah.
I think that's so cool. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll try,
I should make one. A friend of mine recently told me I should make one that's an angel investor so that other angel investors could use it.
Yeah.
So I need to reprogram one to do, or I need to program another one, I should say.
I
But
mean, would you
it'd be
please do
cool.
that and then let us
Okay.
know when?
Okay. That's good. I mean, it's like what we were talking about before. Like, yeah, I needed more people to say, yes, this is a good idea.
Yes, it's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a really good idea. Katie Dunn, you are an incredible woman with a beautiful smile, and you are obviously brilliant, have done big things, and will continue to do even bigger things on this planet. Thank you for being here today on Getting Rich Together.
Thank you so much, Syama. It's a total honor to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. This is the conversation we come back to every single week. Real women, real wealth, and what becomes possible when we stop being silent about money. If today's episode moved you, don't let it stop here. Wealth Catalyst is where women go to take it further. Our Freedom Tour salons are gathering women in 32 cities this year. Intimate evenings in homes and private spaces where women talk honestly about money, risk, and what they're building. And if you're ready to go even bigger, join us at the Wealth Catalyst Summit, a full-day event in New York City this May and San Francisco this October. Find your city and claim your seat at wealthcatalyst.com. We'll see you there.